everyone. Grandpa Ron here again. I hope you're all well and happy. Today got a rainy day outside here, but we're going to get into God's Word and brighten things up a little bit. Continuing our very basic Bible study, we're going to look at Joshua chapter 2 today. Remember in chapter 1, the children of Israel had, after their wanderings in the desert for 40 years, had come up to the boundary of the Promised Land. Several tribes were permitted to take the property on the east side of the Jordan River. Now they're getting ready to cross the Jordan River and occupy the rest of the Promised Land. The tribes that have taken up possession on the east side of the river have been charged with and promised to take their soldiers across the river and help the other tribes possess the remainder of the Promised Land that God has designated for them. So let's see what transpires in preparation for crossing the Jordan. Joshua chapter 2, verse 1. Then Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men as spies secretly from Shittim, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." So they went and came into the house of a harlot whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. Now remember, spies had been sent in before, and the reason the Israelites had to wander in the desert for 40 years was because the spies, by and large, reported that the peoples in the Promised Land were too powerful and too large, and they basically did not trust God and chickened out. As punishment, God had them wander in the desert for 40 years until that unbelieving and unfaithful generation passed away. Now we have a new generation getting ready to go in, and Joshua's sending in these spies. Now he's only sent 2. Before they sent in a large number, but he's only sent in 2. So when they get into the land and come to Jericho, they come into the house of a harlot named Rahab. Don't know the circumstances about that, but they're there. And let's see what happens. Verse 2. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, men from the sons of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land." So somebody must have recognized them as being part of the children of Israel and have reported it. The time elements in these verses is compressed, so we don't know how much time elapsed, but word got back to Rahab that these men are of interest to the king. Verse 3. And the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from." This, of course, is an outright lie. She did know where they were from, and she did know they were spies. So let's see what her motivation was in all of this. Verse 5. And it came about when it was time to shut the gate at dark that the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. She must have been pretty believable, because we're going to see in the following verses that they believed her. But she made up a pretty good story here. Verse 6. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order on the roof. So she's basically covered up with flax. Now flax is a type of vegetation that could be used for food. It could be used for fibers to make linen, sails, and that kind of thing. And it's also where they get linseed oil from. So she's kind of buried them under a pile of flax. Verse 7. So the men pursued them on the road to the Jordan, to the fords. And as soon as those who were pursuing them had gone out, they shut the gate. So, like I say, she must have been believable and credible, and they took out after him. Verse 8. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before you. So somehow their reputation has followed them. And she's going to elaborate on this a little bit. Verse 10. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Ammonites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. So word had gotten to them. Remember, they crossed the Jordan over 40 years ago. The Red Sea over 40 years ago. And that great miracle was related over all these years to these people, and they've been living in fear of this because they must have known the Israelites are wandering in the desert, and clearly by word of mouth and actual eyewitness accounts, I suppose, these people knew of that great miracle, and they were terrorized. They were afraid of it. Verse 11. And when we heard it, our hearts melted, and no courage remained in any man any longer because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. She has, basically, by what she says, believes in their God now, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. She's what we call a proselyte. She's changed from one religion to another. She believes in their God. So that was her motivating factor. Fear, belief that their God was capable of destroying her and her people. And here we have the fear of the Lord. And she's helping them. Verse 12, Now therefore, please swear to me by the Lord, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you also will deal kindly with my father's household, and give me a pledge of truth, and spare my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters with all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. So she's making a deal with them, or trying to. And remember, God has told through covenant to their forefathers that anybody who deals kindly with the nation of Israel, God will deal kindly with them. He who blesses you, I will bless. He who curses you, I will curse. And here in this sense, she's blessing them by protecting them. And we're going to see later in the chapter that God is going to bless her for this and her family. Verse 15, Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall, so that she was living on the wall. Now let's put that in your memory banks, because in subsequent chapters we're going to read more about this wall of Jericho. You probably already know what's going to happen. But she's actually living on that wall. Her house is actually part of the wall. Verse 16, And she said to them, Go to the hill country, lest the pursuers happen upon you, and hide yourself there for 3 days until the pursuers return. Then afterward you may go on your way. And the men said to her, We shall be free from this oath to you which you have made us swear, unless, when we come to you into the land, you tie this cord of scarlet thread in the window through which you have let us down, and gather to yourselves in the house your father and your mother and your brothers and all your father's household. So they're saying part of our agreement here is that you've got to tie this red thread on your window to identify your dwelling, and we're going to spare you whoever's in that dwelling. Verse 19, And it shall come about that anyone who goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be free. But anyone who is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head if a hand is laid on him. Pretty solid agreement. Anybody in the house we're going to spare. Anybody outside the house, they're on their own. Verse 20. Another stipulation. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be free from the oath which you have made us swear. And she said, according to your word, so be it. So she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. So she's living up to her part, and she's agreed to the stipulations. And they departed and came to the hill country, and remained there for 3 days until their pursuers returned. Now the pursuers had sought them all along the road, but had not found them. Then the 2 men returned and came down from the hill country and crossed over and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they related to him all that had happened to them. And they said to Joshua, surely the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and all the inhabitants of the land, moreover, have melted away before us. So this is quite unlike the report of the spies the first time they come up to the border, who said, we don't have a chance. These people are too strong. The cities are too strong. But here these spies are saying, no, these people are melting away. They're afraid of us. They're terrified of us. And surely God has given them into our hands. So we're going to stop there, keeping it basic and short. Pretty exciting story. And we're going to see another miracle happen in the next chapter. But until then, we'll quit. Now, you can always read ahead. This whole book is an exciting book, and we're trying to make it very basic. So I look forward to the next video. In the meantime, God bless. See you then. Bye-bye.